Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
Yo, Professor Gyampo, or professor in political science at University of Ghana, Legon. Na papa yi wabekasa. In fact, wabeka ensampa na mpesu nyabotre na mekobo video no ekire na hu ensam wa papa no aka. Owura Professor Gyampo munyina munim no se ono onye NDC ni mpese obi ade hye na sum. Papa yi obi a ono no waye no ho se oyi social commentator. Asam no se de tie no sa na oka no. So mobeka ya ebra na John Mampanyini John Dramani Mahamate abaimu. Papa yi or one of the critics mobeka ya mbebi kura woni Felix Ofusukwache e de face wo krum ha ene eyi okujetomu de face wo krum ha, all because of the critics be no de ba na October na Felix Musoto ato amane na October. In fact ekoye kan cherewadu yam so ben chere madwene ono sa na otie. In fact at the time me na me feel say bia he was being influenced by this MPP cohorts and I say this MPP for na me feel say he was being influenced. Na aban sign mo hu say no papa no sa na enye sa na ote ono no asamo no said ye tie no sa na o ka no na ene Professor Gyampo chiremu a Omampanyini Akuffo Addo, he should be the first president of Ghana in the history ya impeaching ani was say ye impeach President Akuffo Addo. Was it parliamentarians no should gather momentum, the minority side mon sorry now more they won't start the process of impeachment, whether you lose or win. Start the impeachment process because no ordinary so atiatie from say even MPP for an ankasa parliamentarians ni bi efra mo ni omu di nkomo ebi mu hia no ni di nkomo Akuffo Addo Ohio papa no Ohio otete or ha party ni ho ade enti onimpa say even the the majority in parliament, some of them are worried about how the party is going. But I won't mean or say Professor Gyampo say a minority no the almost started, so almost starting po na so man succeed here. It will go down as the first Akuffo Addo will go down as the first president Ghana for, and now say parliamentarians at starting process say you be impeaching. Because nyoma Omampanyini ye no ochiremu a in fact someone can was say or the one in Kesia Sakoma Supreme Court for Supreme Court Ghana Judiciary, especially Supreme Court also mo ya gemo ho mena nya mo ya mo hwe yo say Ghana ha bibia sipen ama judges ye chiomo tap ti mo hwe ye, you people should be careful. And yes, the more no se boni ebe me mpese me kasa bebre mpese ye ko ne ye kohwe video no said ye be ya obete de me kana se ba beto ankomo no so na mesre wo say obebom modern na wa like video no e de amain pacho o like e bo ama video no kwa chiri ma foforo so enya bihwe nsem ati se no wo say kwa chiri ma Ghana fo enya tibi to ba ya no like video na abo ama video na tumi akona chi na wo adwenkyire bi so a wo de ato comment section no ase na wa share ama foforo so ensa aka bi atumi ahwe yenkohwe Professor Gyampo ewo the key points of TV3 wo embra na o doso ninsem no embra.
And so in the process, everything I want to say,
there's somebody speaking after you.
Everything I want to say, I always say.
Forgive.
No, but you see, I like the angle that Honorable Mahama Yarega took was not when I got up at dawn and I was thinking about the issues. So the same angle that I took. This is a pure showdown between the legislature and the executive arm of government. What is happening is unprecedented in the history of Ghana's Fourth Republic, and it is simply because we also haven't had a hung parliament before. Now, the Afia Makpo was within his right to send whatever he thought he needed a judicial interpretation to court. And but I'm saying that the boldness with which he did what he's done arose as a result of we operating a hung parliament or a near hung parliament. The Supreme Court may have thrown the application out, but I dare say that it is not a marching order to Parliament to do the bidding of the executive president. The fact that the matter has been thrown out does not automatically mean that Parliament has been given a marching order to act on the ministerial nominees of the president. Parliament is a master of its own processes in every democratic dispensation. And a hung parliament, particularly with the demise of John Kuma, can be a democratic superman in frustrating the executive president if it wants to do so. It can be a democratic superman in frustrating the executive president if it feels that consistently the executive president is disregarding its powers and its authority. I mean, why do we have a serial refusal on the part of the president to append signatures to bills? The last time I heard the minority leader saying that we shouldn't be surprised if they initiate impeachment proceedings against the president. Why not? Let them go ahead. They may not win, but it will go down in the history that for the first time in the history of Ghana's Fourth Republic, a certain president, suffered this. There was an attempt to impeach him, even if because of excessive partisanship. People, his own MPs will speak behind the scenes against him, and yet when it gets public, they would chicken out. Even if that happens, he will go down in history as someone who was almost impeached. You see, in locating sovereignty, I will tell you that Parliament is superior to the executive in trying to locate sovereignty, because not all of us voted for President Akuffo Addo, but every Ghanaian is represented on the floor of Parliament. And so Parliament essentially represents the people. Whereas when it comes to president, it's only a section, 50% plus one, who elected the president. And so, if the president decides, if Parliament decides that it would work against the president, then president may not be able to stand it, especially if it's a hung parliament. Now you've also lost one of your members of parliament. If they decide to fight against you, it is going to be difficult for the executive president. And I am surprised that up till now, you see, we are used to winning elections and dominating on the floor of parliament. That's what the executive presidents over the years have been used. So it appears it's being difficult for President Akuffo Addo to appreciate what time is it. It is not the kind of parliament that can be always relied upon to rubber stamp your decision, but especially if you have a speaker of parliament who doesn't come from your party and you have a hung parliament. You cannot bulldoze. Yes, sometimes because the executive control resources, you can be able to use resources to influence and to circumvent processes and to do all manner of things to keep parliament in line. But if a hung parliament, it gets to a point in time and they say that, look, this is what we have all decided on. We want you to append your signature. If you decide to
that bill was bipartisan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was super bipartisan. Yes. Okay, so if you get a president who wants to swim against the tide, and a president who wants to mortgage our humanity and cultural values just for $3 billion, you see, we are who we are because of the values and what we believe in. Okay, we are who we are because of the values and what we believe in. And so Parliament sat down to decide. And this is not the first time. Mr. President, I think that, you see, disregarding the general will, the hopes and aspirations of Ghanaians, simply because one is exiting from power, should make it difficult for the MPP to go campaign in the coming election, especially when the very people you are going to seek their mandates, the same people are having their general will being undermined by the president. You see, we may have we may have differences, but you see this LGBT thing and the posturing about it, you can see that virtually the generality of the Ghanaian populace are against it. And these are the people who have spoken through their members of parliament. How do you try to undermine the general will of the people at a time when your party is also out there trying to appeal to this generality, the general conscience or the general populace, to give them the mandate to be able to break the eight? It is going to be difficult. I don't see how, and I don't know whether people within the MPP are thinking about this. This is a general will of the people. You are going to be appealing to the general population to give you another mandate. Now you have a president who is exiting, and because he's leaving, he doesn't care. So he's running contrary to the general will of the people. Yet you want to appeal to these same people. I think that if they are bold people within the MPP, they must begin to think about how they will be able to rescue their party from the claws of the exiting Akuffo Addo. Again, as a nation, we must find a way. We must think about legislating against what I call presidential debt gootism. Presidential debt gootism. When the president is exiting and he doesn't care about anything, and so he decides to throw cautions to the wind, he decides that, look, I can mortgage your values and your traditions and your belief system for 3 billion. How do we treat that president? We should have a legislation.
And the Constitution provides for impeachment.
Well, the Constitution provides for impeachment process, but sometimes it becomes difficult because you don't have that kind. You are not sure whether you will be able to marshal, support from Parliament. Like I said,
process.
They would gossip to you behind the scenes, but publicly, that is who we are. And so you see, I call on the churches, I call on civil society organizations, identifiable groups, to begin to speak against the attempt by the exiting president to torpedo the general will of the people. I disagree respectfully with those who are speaking in support of the presidential hypocrisy and insincerity in attempting to show a certain respect for judicial independence and judicial autonomy. Suddenly the president is telling Ghanaians that, look, I have a lot of respect for judicial independence, and so if a matter is sub judice, if a matter is before somebody has taken a matter to the court, I'm not willing to act on. But this president has acted on matters that are in court before. And so I see the show of a certain respect for judicial independence and judicial autonomy as insincere and hypocrisy. And then again, matters before the court, in my view, should not immobilize the president and make him ineffective in implementing a decision taken by the generality of the citizenry. Because there is something before the court, all of a sudden, we should wait. And we know how sometimes the court processes can drag. And so if a president has to take a decision, somebody tells you that, look, it is before court, And so all of us, we should be in limbo. In political science, we teach what we call judicial review. What is the essence of judicial review? It's the power given to the courts to take a second look at laws made by Parliament or actions of the executive to declare them ultra vires, null and void, unconstitutional or illegal. After the action has taken place, the concept of judicial review empowers the judges to look at it again and say, hey, maybe he who is cutting the path does not know his back is crooked. This particular legislation is unconstitutional. This action of the president is null and void, or it violates the constitution, is ultra vires or something. So they are there. So for me, for a president to say, no, I'm not going to act. I'm not going to act. I'm going to wait till Parliament, the matter is decided by the courts. How about if it delays in perpetuity? As we know, matters have been there and they have delayed. It creates an impression that the president is trying to outsmart the people of Ghana. But Mr. President, we have seen through what you are doing. You want to hide behind the processes to circumvent and to undermine the expression of the general will of the people, simply because you are exiting and you don't care. Posterity will judge you. Now let's talk about the judges in this case. You see, oftentimes when it comes to the judiciary, yes, we are overly cautious, and the lawyers here would always be frightening us and saying all manner of things. But you see, yeah, we have a history. I don't want to remind us. We have a history of judges doing their work, professional work, and yet being abducted and killed. It's happened in Ghana before. Judges, they were doing their work. They were not doing anything illegal. But the legal work that they are doing, the professional work that they were doing, others interpreted their work as being in contrast with the expression of the general will of the people. And so they were abducted and they were gruesomely murdered. It appears that the whole country, we have decided that this should never happen again. And I believe in that kind of resolve, that never should it happen again, that judges will be doing their work and some people will say, well, what you are doing does not reflect the general will of the people, and so then we want to deal with you in a particular way. It should never happen. But our resolve not to repeat the dastard past should not be licentious for judicial tyranny and judicial unaccountability. We don't want to go back to the past. But it doesn't mean that judges should be untouchable, they should not be accountable. It doesn't mean we should license judicial tyranny. Yes, Godfrey Dami may have applied for expedited judgment on this matter. And so, in business management, there was LIFO, last in, first out. Okay. Now, in trying to grant this last in, first out thing, the judges should have known that certainly this will create a certain perception of bias in the psyche of the teeming people who are ignorant. How many people know that there can be last in, first out? You can write and the judge would decide that, look, let me hear this matter first, even though we've had one and it's lying down. You see, you create a certain perception in the psyche of the people that you are being biased.
Even though that perception is not grounded in law.
Sometimes it's perception that caused. I mean, so when the judges were abducted, it was perception in the minds of some people that they were not doing things in line with the general will of the people. And so my argument is that if there is judicial accountability, the application of the law by judges must be done such a way that it also respects the moods and sensibilities of the people. I undertook a course called Judicial Politics in the US. And I remember Professor Kent Potney narrating a certain attitude of a US Supreme Court to us. He said that judge always wants to be with the law. He always wants to be with the law. All that he does is that, look, he speaks, he eats the law. And so because of that, this judge, he lives very far away from people. Okay? He does not read newspapers. He doesn't watch television. He doesn't listen to news. Why? He doesn't want what is happening within society to influence him. But in that course, Professor Ketney and the whole class, they criticized the judge because they said that it is the role of the judiciary must always not be confined to law, but you must also be mindful of public policy. You must also be mindful of public mood and sensibility. We are not saying that let that overly sway you, but you should find a certain nice balance between the application of law in a manner that respects the mood and sensibilities, of the people. And so we argued that rigid application of laws without thinking about public mood and sensibilities is a threat to judicial independence and also ushers people sitting as judges into a regime of robots. We must be able to apply the laws. We must be able to respect the judicial processes. But in doing so, I call on judges to also be mindful of the perception that they are building about themselves. Okay, because look, you would appreciate the role of the judiciary and their importance when you cast your mind back to our 2013 election petition process. It was the judges, it was the judiciary that held the fort, that kept us together. And so I am not interested in doing anything, and I'm not interested in supporting anybody in saying things that undermines the image of the judges. But at the same time, they also have a responsibility to do things that would protect the institution that they work in. They have a responsibility to offer judgments that respects the moods and sensibilities of the people, so that they would deliberately be doing things to cut or to reduce the negative perceptions of bias, against them. If they decide that, look, as for us, we do not care about what the public says. Sometimes you hear the judges, you hear some of the lawyers say, it's not about what you think, it's not about what you know, it's just about law. I'm saying that if you are always talking about law, and then you are disregarding, you are behaving as if you do not live in the society, and so you don't care about the moods and sensibilities of the people, then you are what your conduct itself will remain an affront to the quest to shore up judicial independence, because it will be in the psyche of people that you are biased. The more people think you are biased, the more
and you are,
the more you become, and then the more there is an affront to the notion of judicial independence. And so we appeal to the judges that now Tadiosori has also written for an expedited hearing of the other case. And as Mahama Ayariga said, we are all watching. Okay, so let the judges do their work and let them deliberately also be out there ensuring that they are trying to deal with the negative perception, public perception of bias. People name them Unanimous FC and all that. I'm not for those kinds of naming, but they should deliberately also be seen to be doing things to be addressing this kind of bias that people have, about them. But the key matter here under discussion, or the key issue here that attention must be drawn on, is the fact that what is going on now in this Dafia Makpo case, and the judges throwing the matter interlocutory injunction out and order, is all about a struggle between the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government. And I'm saying that in trying to locate who is who, in trying to locate sovereignty, Parliament is superior to the executive arm of government. And if you get a hung parliament, and the hung parliament decides to frustrate the executive arm of government, it is governance that will suffer. Akuffo Addo has a nation to govern. And so it is more, the responsibility lie more with him to be able to act in a manner that shows cooperation with the legislative arm of government. As for Parliament, if they decide as for a hang Parliament, if he decides to frustrate the executive, I mean, we would all suffer.
Okay.
But you ask yourself, now who caused them? Why should we have an executive president who is touted as a constitutional lawyer, a human rights activist, and who, when it comes to democracy, people see him as a guru, suddenly refusing to assent to bills? You will not sign a bill, but you will also not resort to the processes, the legitimate or legally provided processes that should guide his attempt not to sign a bill. If you do that, you are frustrating the people of Ghana. And I'm saying that we should begin to legislate against this this show of presidential death goatism.
Okay.
You are death goat, you are going. As for me, I'm 80 years. I am going. I don't care. I can do whatever I want to do. If you do that, like I said, posterity will judge you. And then secondly, you people in the MPP must be thinking, the bold and courageous ones. It's not about meeting some of us and gossiping about it behind the scenes. The president will hire you. The president is worrying us. You should be you should be man enough in looking into the president's face and say, Mr. President, you are leaving, but we are campaigning to break an 8. There should be a movement, movement to rescue the party from the claws and the shackles of the exiting president Akuffo Addo. Otherwise, they would be laughing at the wrong side of their mouth come 2024.
Well, let me go on to the telephone quickly. Yes, Lawyer Bobby Banson is joining us.
Professor Ransford Gyampo, political scientist, or no any Yakofa name some Eddie Abro. In fact, we are kind of plain. We you see the was on untie the home no catch us after we are straight. Yes, a straight upu no kran ya catch it. Se o man penyini Akuffo Addo o je home na e ukrum ha. He say why ya ma obi ahun say Ghana ha obi ahun say wo no your constitution nankasa kra na ye di adwuma no you don't respect it. Constitution no. Your lawyer. And you were expected say ka wo de wo ye lawyer no ka wo beti se de mra. Udi respect beto mra so. Nanka memfa na say presidents bia be badampo na ebia na omo kwan omo fa so ye nyoma bia mfa mra kwan man ka wo de ka at least ka ye hu sa sunu wo ho. And so there's a okra na bo entwaye enkoye onyoma wo ye nyina wo kire se be constitution kra de se be wo de paper wa jana nche se wo ko jabana wi na wo de paper wo to wo mfa nya hwe wo kurum ha wo na ya to aba ma wo na ya soma wo se ko aban kesim na toto ye nyoma maye no enne wafra betena ye kon so de wo pe na wo pese wo ye ne ye ka no enya asam ema wo eti parliamentarians ni nyina ka bom na omo take decision pa including your own parliamentarians kurampo ka omo tiri bom say yenko ne si a wo say da bi mi de me nya ne sa because wo president a wo say wo de wo pe no say de wo pe say bibia ko say de wo pe ni ye no an sen na ambin. This is not the first time wo yes adie we menimo kasai parliamentarians nina ko shiae wo Ghana ha se mo bekaya se ye hangi obi wa homa so se bia judgment abasi yenkum obi wo like obi fence adiboni bi na ye de judgment wi abasi yenkunu yemfa no ko farans ko ni yenko tin yenko kunu whether by hanging or by shooting or whatever. Samra no Ghana echo parliamentarians ko asetenam ko omunyina gitu mu say yentwam nipa no odiboni bia yemfa no to life imprisonment odiboni na se fi se sa aboni wi ani yenyaya yemfa no ko life imprisonment. Parliamentarians sign ade no e de call ye no bepem ne se afi na president Akuffo Addo de nsa e be hya ase amana ye mra obi anim saa na politicians ibod bi ha mo de mano ka na Gambaga witchcraft na fence witch camp ne ho ade na fan kosi he na ma mmerwafo ne achom so ya baifo ne abro mo ne apamo mo de makogu akura bi ase so mo de mo ntimi makrom ya po mo because mo ya baifo nkuro bi ho no mo a mo wo sa ma mmere no se wo ya baifo e chewa ne apamo afiri kuro num obi ya baifo ntini ye mfa ye mpani kuro mu ha mpani abusuan mu ne ye ose sa nyoma no de bia mo be kaya Oman penyine yere fensen Lodina wa call Gambaga which camp honum adi nuana akomo mo a hye omo so mbeboa omo ne ho ade ye fensen fensen Rebecca fense Akuffo Addo na yiri omu nyina omo akohoda akoshe omo bo adi nuane akoho ye beboa ye be kama ye kununum a make sure say emra no ye be hye emra no ye dia protect mo na ama obi antumi emfa ne nsa entine obi so ebaifo empam ne mfiri ne krumu a oteso na emma ne right ono so wo as a Ghanaian no emfiri ne nsa efiri eye omampanyini Rollins yere so eba ye maame Teresa Akuffo so eba ye maame Nadu Mills so eba fence Lodina ne Rebecca so obia akohon mako asho nkrofo wi ena parliamentarians natena se abom so ki ene yen hyehyɛ mmra ne yen fa mmra sa ade no se obi ntumi ntena baabi sofo obi ntumi ntena baabi se we ba ifo ntimo mpam no film abusuam so konfo bi ntimi nsori enka se we ni we ba ifo ni kuma simasi ntimo mpam no film abusuam wrong yes so sa nyoma no so because mostly ni ahwehwe hunu say sometimes ebinim ho mo a enya wo omutimi fa kwati kwan bi so na ya bold nsa wo ye baifo na o mapamo afriko nu just because of ebi omunim wo da chene ni obetima be ye wa brabom ni ho ade there are so many people who were classified as witches and wizards and they were sacked from the family and omutimi ye kakra gura mu a be ye obi ti se ohene ba papa ya oman FM ya oton nuru yi utie ni history oso no ni family na pamo no omo pamo no firifie se mo omeye like mo oye baifo ntima o ma abusuan mu bia ono ankasa ne maame epo no o kasa ansam de bia o se ni nti okohye sunwane na obi carpenter se fence fita juba bi mu no ja okoda ho kakra onyeska no de ko ni school onyeska no de ko bi ofri fence Kumasi was Ashanti region so Eastern region otukotena ayi sunwane all because abusuafo apono se so ebaifo kopem se kakra odi wi school betna sunwane ya adwuma kakra pa no doje no de be sha kakra ne abusuafo ni nyina ya po no se onye obi a o ye baifo ne ho ade na omu nyina be koto no omu nyina be hye na se e be gisika kodi ne ho ade a enne amene o kase oyo hempon e woni kurum ya ye no hene enti se nkenye nyame na ye na dom enanka odi ania den kopa school ko ye e ma ne obeduru ba bia wadu yanka ya said life ka ya say na braba nyame de man ka ya dwiri no enti no sometimes your onkrofo bi wo ho no mo a beifo na wo kurum ho na ne kan hu bom se akoye hwe ne da chia e great then pe kwan bi so ne stop no na o ma hye da ye nyoma bi na akosi super pepe se wo na okuma asimasi wo na ha beifo na ye ne sei ne apamo anti-parliamentarians nadia tum say look yanya sadia to protect obia na afei o makogia tumu a e de sa bill no akoto omampanyini Akuffo Addo nim se on sign bepom ne kobe 2 years ni se 3 years bepom ne omampanyini se on fa ne nsa ento ase ne on fa ntia ento ase chena ni akwa ba bedru LGBTQ+ ade aga na ye chiwade nkramofo chiri akristofo chiri abosonsomfo chiri just ordinary people krampo omuchi ye nyina ye chiwade ye values no ne mfa na omampanyini Akuffo Addo parliamentarians including your own parliamentarians not even a single one and sorry a man and say or no he or she is against it because they are representing their constituents. Na so ma be take this decision here. What Myanmar executive secretary actual letter disrespectfully at the parliament say my bill no crampum to car mukrasi edo ya de Flagstaff House or yes the basi no. Can you imagine? Na what's up for their court? Asumo obi ama na court say on fa injunction court so say na be ya won sign na nyoma say na ACC or court ho e che say wo yo obi a won why wadwen say mmra no Ghana mmra no umfa nya adwuma ummu Ghana mmra umfa mmra no enya hwe because yes what me doso ma wura mu anya sebi judges bi o so so sebi 2 ponkoso judges bi o so sebi nya ohwehwe bia no ma ya ma forgetting say wo ye to abama okeke wo brebe so ama watwamu ko ama no judge na da so atena ne office wo forgetting say so no judge no ne biere ne mama ne nananom ne descendants so efroba enti so wanhwe no wanya o madi ye na odi nipa baako for interest achia dachi posterity will judge him and his descendants na mosusu mugu ho na omampanyini ya ono ne selfish interest eno ono ehwe no na judges ni bi esusu di achire na mo ye nsabi eno na Professor Gyampo ka kire mo say look mon kaida bi sabi ya say dachi a 70 ena ye dokotu kodua ijane ho dachi a 70 ena ye dokotu kodua ijane ho ena hunu bi pensu nti ena abo aserewa ojeje ne baagura na wayi nani ato nchen what you see it you sometimes mon kaida bi de asi wo krom happen mon kai se ebre bi duru ya oman we mu. There was a time judges bi na nkrofo bi susu se omo judgment in the court ne kwan omo fa so di omo nsam say ye papa say nyam papa na sa nkrofo no omo amfa ne yie nti ye kwachi omo eku omo ye ku omo oti ase enti mo kan hu se abojabun ba segidigidiba asamba you guys will suffer than us. Mu parliamentarians mu the executive mu the judiciary sa asem eba krum ha you people will suffer than us. Say your microphobia or mo a was say omutimi sorry protect the what do you call it, the constitution of Ghana, to make sure that there is peace in this country. Mu and was say mo kram mu gina infinfin to make sure say de bia no bo be kura oman mu sei na ba kwa anyes imbalance like anchia de bia it should be balanced. E was say de bia no e pepepe said de be ya ba bia ni hu a like obintimi feel so rejected, so neglected, so outcasted. No so boni amantima mananko di boni bi e o man nim ambese o man na mai etika this time mu parliament offense judicial mu kra na was mu no mutimi sorry gina na mo hwe making sure say ye the periphery ye ayeden ato but ebi ni yetimu ene ma ya hama chese ukọ abofra mpo nchen na ubisa say Supreme Court of Ghana oji omudi so omo kanokore wo ho ana say so wasam odi wasam ko no ebitimi adi ama wanya justice bia beka se da bi. Look at the perception index. Defense and polls are echo perception amount for what judiciary no. Mudi omampini Akuffo Addo achi and am say o man no. Mon kind debut. Hey, mon kind debut. One day. Krono, yes so comfort bonne kase krono wa ono so so timubio. If you are thinking about your stomach, you are thinking about your kids, don't forget that enya usabi umano a wetimi afa omo ade omo kogu abrochi no enya wabusuafo nyina na ade omo ko. Be careful. Ena umano kra ode omo kogu abrochi no, you don't know what will happen. Unim da omo bi beba Ghana ne da asembisi A day will come. Unya plane pon what to your mind more. If yanye yenyoma year, a day can come. Unya plane pon what to your mind. In fact, unya kwine wafa border mu akrampo de car kutwa mu afa baby o. A day will come. You will be blocked from your own movements. Untimi to enko baby ya. Enti esemenemu say ye nyina ye bo man no ho ban. Let us forget about obi selfish interest. Look, in 2016 Otikromha, Omampeni John Dramani Mahama, he had every opportunity to have turned the verdict. Yes, because see to aba na electoral commission in video mudi adwuma na obi a hack into it. Na electoral commission enya access to it. And can you prove enough to show to any kind of offense foreign, what do you call, observer say, hey, I am Prof in the person because money say me president my winning enti na omo person omo hack into the account. Now call their first was a verdict, no, but for the sake, for the sake of peace, for the sake of our friends saying, for the peace of this country, this man had to opted for, the verdict at Ghana for hiding Ediaba. Go bet me aye bibia man aye possible. Masa, o man chichere na ye chichire o. So won dwene ho adwene o ma ho, won dwene o ma ho adwene o ma ho. O man chichere na ye chichire sabi. Wonye ageman. Na won kwa de o man na so awo sabi kwa me nkroma krampo no ko. What you say? Entini sa obedi president ya ye ma obedi president na kokoti like o ye ho say wo de wo ye kabia nkabi ne wo pe na wo ye ne ho keka ho and it doesn't add up. Nya botere o mampanyini enti asama Professor Gyampo kano na se kire nyina no ye nyina ye ma ye ni na ho na yen hwehwe oman yi die na oman di ya na yen so ene ye man ye mama ne ye future generations omoso so eba be di ye e ma yen hwehwe de nenko a ye bedi da bi ma yen hwehwe ne nenko a ye bedi. There are presidents oman penyin kofo abreso oman penyin Rollins Ukrompo na oye fencing military fencing leader onu Krompo ni yenhwe kwanya ofa so ebu na mamuo odi obuo ni die de ma oman no constitution oti ase na enye na chesa odwene ho a wonti ase oman penyin ye de ope o ye de ope ya na boso asem chese ni ope no o ye odwene ho a wonti ase ase mra no e baller bi ase chese ye MPP for a constitution and yet adwuma and no, it is not a party's constitution for crying out loud. Muma yensua biribio na posterity is going to judge us one day si anye yenwoma yie na se kusia na ekuta enu frito from say kranyai ebi bebra simbio wo de mamentwa so kra na yemfa dwumadie no ensi ham sabi asopa enchere asamti aha PENDREAM TV mesro so be subscribe to the channel o ba bombodin so be subscribe e dia mayen so mo abitimi dia boy na no like video no wo abinkire bi a mesro comment section na ase na wo dia to ase e dia mayen ne nyina ya to adwene ye nko na sabi opportunity ne ye dia ososo timi do comment to ase e ma amanfo so ana afoforo so esusu etumi ready na ye hu kwan ye bitumi afa so e di oman no enyina afa so ubetuma share video no so ama foforo ahwe aha PENDREAM TV enti na ye de se ha de edam yopo
maneva na se ma PENDREAM TV de o se edam yopo